Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the 5 worst Shostakovich recordings. Yes, these really suck. Now, for a long time, bad Shostakovich was rather difficult to come by, partly because he lived to the 1970s, and because he lived so long, most of his better-known interpreters either worked with him personally or worked with someone who worked with him personally. And there was a certain respect given to the music. It was a bit of a specialty of certain conductors and soloists and artists. And, there was a community of Russian artists that worked with him particularly and who trained lots of other people. So you didn't find really bad Shostakovich. Well, in the years since, we found some really bad Shostakovich. And there was some terrible Shostakovich while he was still alive, too, as you'll see. But let's start at the beginning, shall we? Symphony number 8 with Gergiev and Mariinsky. Now, Gergiev worked his way through a couple Shostakovich cycles, basically. There were duplicates of things and whatnot. And it only got worse as it went. The Mariinsky Shostakovich performances were particularly fallible. Not all of them, but most of them. Because, first of all, it's not a great orchestra. Never was, never will be. Did not get great sonics from its engineers. But his Shostakovich 8th, oh, is this bad. First of all, Gergiev sings the whole symphony. Normally, that doesn't bother me so much. Glenn Gould sang Schoenberg. It was fine. But Gergiev is doing it in a particularly irritating way as regards the engineering, and that makes the whole performance really unpleasant to listen to. But aside from that, it's a performance totally lacking in sinew, in chops, in excitement. It sounds like a boring second-rate orchestra that doesn't particularly care for the music that it's performing. And Gergiev is absolutely on autopilot for the whole symphony. It's dreadful. So that's definitely one of the worst Shostakovich recordings ever. Another one, and this is interesting actually because quite a few of these come from Russian artists, which used to be impossible. But now that we're in the post-Shostakovich generation of all these Russian artists, well, it's becoming possible. Symphonies numbers 4 and 8 with Pletnev and the Russian National Orchestra on Pentatone. Now, Pletnev, as you know, is an extremely strange conductor. He really is. He can be hot or cold. He is usually cold as a conductor. As a pianist, he's fascinating as often as not. But his Shostakovich symphonies were just awful. And 4 and 10, two of the most intense of all the Shostakovich symphonies, which are an intense lot, as you know. 4 is balletic in all the wrong ways. It just lacks that steel and ice sharpness and focus and mechanical, mechanistic, crushing, powerful. I mean, it just has no power. 10 is boring beyond belief. It's shockingly boring. The Stalin scherzo goes nowhere. The finale has no jubilation. It's really incredible just how disinterested he sounds in playing this music. And the orchestra, again, it's just a bunch of second-raters. I mean, they may be a pickup ensemble or whatever they are, but they're just not on top of their game at any point in these performances. They're very unfortunate. So those are also two just wretched Shostakovich performances. Another wretched one was the very first video I ever did on this channel. The video wasn't wretched, I hope. The performances were. It was a very short video. At that time, YouTube was saying, well, most videos are less than 3 minutes. You should never be more than 3 minutes. Yeah, okay, right. Anyway, it's Shostakovich Symphony number 11, the year 1905, with Storgards, John Storgards, the BBC Philharmonic, on Chandos. A not very powerful recording and an exceptionally namby-pamby is the word, lacking in power, lacking in vision and intensity And the 11th, it's not one of Shostakovich's greater symphonies. It's basically a film score in search of a film. And you've got to play it for all it's worth. You've got to go for the drama, the cinematic qualities of the massacre in the second movement, the visceral impact of the final pages, and none of that happens in this performance. The BBC Philharmonic is a good but somewhat plain Jane orchestra. They don't have a lot of personality, and if the conductor doesn't imbue them with that personality, it's not going to happen. And it doesn't. It absolutely is. And the rest of his cycle, as it's progressed, has been just as interesting. It's just a wet noodle of a cycle. It really is. Next, cello concertos. I've been talking about symphonies mostly because that's what people care about. In chamber music, Shostakovich has been extremely lucky. You're hard-pressed to find a bad performance of his chamber works. The string quartets and the like, it doesn't happen very often. And the concertos, too. Because all of today's best soloists play them and love them, and they're marvelous works. But here's a performance of the cello concertos that's a real bow wow. It's with Kirill Rodin and Konstantin Krimets with the Russian Philharmonic Orchestra, whatever that is, on Arte Nova. First of all, the engineering is horrible. Absolutely horrible, especially in the second concerto. It's unlistenably bad. The cello is way, way forward. The orchestra is way in the back, which is probably a good thing. The solo playing in the orchestra is pretty atrocious in places. The horns at the beginning of the finale of the second concerto. The second concerto, let's put it this way, is much worse than the first. In these performances, the finale is like 4 minutes slower than anyone else in the universe. It's 20 some odd minutes long. It's excruciating. Absolutely excruciating. Rodin, he knows how to play the cello. He can do these pieces, but he's getting no help whatsoever. And how they managed to stretch out the finale of the second, which is it's a slow theme in variations, God only knows. So that is a truly appalling recording of the cello concertos. And last but not least, as I said, some of these performances come from when Shostakovich was still with us. The Fifth Symphony with Jascha Horenstein and the Vienna Pro Musica, whatever in God's name that was, on Vox. It's so bad in every way. It's almost impossible to enumerate the different ways in which its horribleness manifests itself. It's a performance that has no positive qualities whatsoever. The orchestra is second rate. The sonics are lousy. Horenstein is just not up to the task. There doesn't have a single positive idea in the entire performance. And, it's very funny. It's the kind of performance that's like, remember when we used to take the scholastic aptitude tests, the SATs? Where the PSATs, they were graded from 200 to 800. And I always used to think, why 200? If you get everything wrong, why do you get a 200 points as opposed to 800 points? Well, of course, you got 200 just because you exist. This is that performance of Shostakovich's Fifth. It's the 200 on the SATs. It's the one that, it's just there. And because it's there and it's recognizably Shostakovich's Fifth, people think, well, there must be something to recommend it. Well, nothing. Nothing whatsoever. It's as low as you can go. And if as low as you can go means you're still like, up here a little bit, you're still as low as you can go. And that, my friends, is my list of the 5 worst Shostakovich recordings. Feel free to contribute yours, and let's see where we wind up. Keep on listening, friends, and thanks for joining me. Take care.